So a very popular quote known by a lot of people is "birds of a feather flock together." And if you haven't heard that quote before, what that means is that you are who you hang out with, or so you appear to be who you hang out with. While this quote might appeal more to appearances, as two of the same feathers from the one bird look the same, a quote that goes into more detail is the one I got, that a man is known by the company his mind keeps. I agree with this quote for 3 different aspects. 1, as a student, 2, as a child to your parents, and 3, when you are picking your friends. As a student, I agree with this quote because if you want to be a good student, you try to keep close relationships with other students in your classes who are also doing well academically. And also, if your teacher sees that you are in a tight-knit group in your classes that is doing well, they will associate you in that same way. Or a group of students in your class that tries really hard to stay on task. If a teacher associates you that way, it's a positive thing, because if you fall back an assignment or you need that extra credit at the end of a class, they will see that kind of company you keep, and they will think that you've been working hard the whole semester and that you deserve a little break at the end, as opposed to somebody who's been slacking off consistently and is trying to pick it up all together at the end and pass the class. A second way that I agree with this quote is as a child to your parents. A lot of parents, especially in high school and middle school, when we're picking our friends, they can be very judgmental on the type of friends you're picking, and they will decide sometimes whether they want you to hang out with them or not. For me personally, when I was in high school, being seen was very popular, and my mom didn't like some of my friends because they had piercings on their lips or plugs, or they had certain hair dye colors, and so automatically she did not want me being friends with anybody who had that kind of appearance. Whereas my grandma was a little more open-minded, despite the fact that she's a little more old school. She would decide what kind of friends I could have based on the kind of person they were, and she was able to see what kind of mentality they had. And some of my friends that appeared to be the most normal or neutral, she didn't approve of because she didn't agree with the kind of person they were, and she saw them as bad company for my mind. The third way I agree with this quote is when you are picking your own kind of friends, and your parents aren't involved, so like in college and stuff. We should pick friends that are good for the kind of person we want to be, and a lot of people want to be different kinds of people, all good versions. So we should pick people who the kind of mind they have is either similar to ours or one that we want to balance off of and help grow as a person. So for me personally, one thing that I have stopped being friends with certain people without telling them is I really don't like when people are disrespectful to their family. And in high school, I once was friends with a girl. We weren't great friends, but we were decent friends, and I went to her house and she started yelling at her mom over the most ridiculous thing I can't even remember, but something that didn't even matter, and I thought it was really rude, and I decided to gradually stop being friends with her. And the reason I did this is because even though we have free will as people to make our own choices and decisions, I didn't want the bad choices and habits of another person. I didn't want to unintentionally pick those up and then become the kind of person I am. So to sum it up, I agree with this quote because it can apply to you as a student, as a younger person when your parents see what kind of company you're keeping, and then the kind of company you keep as an older adult when you're picking your own friends.
Except for when you're holding hands.
My hands are cold.
All right, I like that you found the quote at the beginning to use as a detention device and then transition to the other quote. There was a kind of an awkward transition phrase that wasn't as smooth as it could be, but once you got to the topic, I think we knew what you were trying to say about it. You had a good preview, so we knew where you were headed. I thought you did a good job supporting each of those points, coming up with some illustrations. On the third point especially, it was much more easy to relate to because you had a particular case in mind, and it felt a little bit more authentic. The presentation, it's easy to hear you. I think the pacing in the speech is really solid. You don't hesitate, you keep moving forward. It all sounds like you are pretty confident there. So that worked really well. The gestures, I think that he was just talking about, that is a little bit awkward. You have a few indicators, but sometimes you just, it's like you've got your hands in front of you like this, and even if it's cold, it does look a little bit like you're reciting, and you know what I'm talking about, like you're in a class and you're reciting something and you're just kind of rubbing your hands together anxiously. That's the only place where I saw anything that looked like anxiety coming out, and I think the rest of it was very effective. You look engaged and animated while you're speaking to us. There's pretty solid audience contact. Maybe you could be a little bit more engaged with your body movement. You have a tendency to stand and face the one direction, and swiveling a little bit to take in the audience, maybe stepping forward occasionally to emphasize a point. I don't want to encourage people to pace around the room, but you do look a little bit like you're kind of locked in the position. You're in control, and I'm going to stay in control by staying in one place, and that seems a little bit unnatural. All right, and I thought the conclusion of the speech was also very solid. Thank you.